Take a few people. It'll take some time for people to join. Usually watching from your phone?
I should have it on my phone, right?
It lags, it's like delayed.
You start getting feedback like on the radios.
DW Steven, what's up, man? Chris, what's going on? Tyler, what's going on? Oh, look, Melissa's on too.
Oh.
Hey.
Hey.
I'll give it a few seconds. This was a very, a lot of people requested this cocktail. It's about time I did a whiskey sour. So we're gonna have some fun tonight doing it. And I have some special guests with me tonight. We're gonna be doing a new bar angle as well. So tonight I have my neighbors. These are the guys I get into a lot of trouble with. A lot of trouble. I haven't had anything to drink today. I'm good. I'm not drunk yet, I promise. I'll give you guys a little sneak preview of the bar setup. So we got my ice, got all the bar tools out, got my secret garnish under wraps, and then got Kalani.
How's it going?
He was here the other day. He was the one helping me dial in the whiskey sour.
The Chicago peeps, if you're out there getting that Malort, I don't know what's wrong with you people.
Yeah, we had Malort. I think we ended the night with, what was it called?
Death spasm.
Death spasm. Yeah, that was not the greatest shot either.
Yeah, bad decision.
And I got my other neighbor, Robbie. What's up, man?
Howdy, Instagram. How you doing?
We actually got people. I'm making drinks for people, not just myself. All right, give it a couple more minutes. Anyone got any questions out there? I promise you guys are gonna love this whiskey sour recipe. Really, the whiskey is what makes it, but the garnish that I'll introduce you guys tonight is gonna be, it's gonna set it off. All right. Chef Will V, what's up, man? I think he's following along tonight. Andy Graham, what's going on? Chef Will V, he's following along so tight, I think he even is doing the exact same simple syrup, same sugar that I'm using and everything. Tyler, no, the wife's at yoga tonight, but a lot of you guys don't know is every time I do this, right at the very end, as soon as I shut down the camera and I start breaking down the bar, my wife comes in and steals my drink. So I actually never get to finish it. Charles Burge, what's up? BI Bitters, what's going on? My Bourbon Journey, what's happening? Welcome. So we'll give it just a couple more minutes, I promise, and we'll get things going. I'm waiting for 406 Bourbon Hunter to join. He was the one that kept asking over and over again for a whiskey sour. Bourbon Find of the Day, what's going on, man? You're on vacation this week. So if you are going to follow along, it's a great question. If you're going to follow along, the whiskey that I'm going to be using tonight is Rittenhouse Rye. And I'll be talking a lot about the different whiskeys that I've gone through when it comes to doing this whiskey sour. Is it Royden Cooper or Royden Cooper? What's up, man? Welcome. I've made a whiskey sour probably 100 times using tons of different whiskeys. It's usually my go-to drink for bourbon that I don't like. So if there's a bourbon that I drink neat and I'm not a big fan of it, I usually just turn that into cocktail mixing bourbon and I make whiskey sours out of it. It'll mask some of the things that you don't like about that particular bourbon, if there's younger notes in it, things like that. However, throughout the journey of going through trying different whiskeys, there is a favorite of mine. So the whiskey I'll be using tonight is a favorite. Tuesday, I had 4 people over. So Kalani, his wife, my wife, and myself. And we went through five different variations before we decided on what we're gonna do. Scotch Doc, what's up, man? Welcome. So we had some cocktails, but I'll tell you what, that's the kind of the beauty of doing minis. So I've talked before about doing mini cocktails when you're going through and trying to dial things in. So I was making one cocktail, splitting it across 4 people in little tiny cocktail glasses. And so everyone was really just getting a taste. So by the time we were done with it, everyone really only had, 1.5 cocktails at the end. Whiskey, a go girl. What's going on? All right, I've waited long enough. Let's go ahead and get this started. I'm gonna mount you guys up. We'll get say hi to my neighbors. I got some guests with me today. It's Kalani. It's Rob. You guys ready for this?
Oh yeah. Let's do this.
All right, I'm gonna mount you guys up. So it's a little bit different bar angle tonight. So you should be able to see the whole bar, almost the whole bar. All right, so now you guys are on the tripod. I'm gonna be walking away, but I'll be mic'd, so you'll be able to hear me. I'll answer any questions at the end, go through any questions that we have. Let's start making whiskey sour. All right. So, like I said earlier, this week, we went through and worked on quite a few different variations of the whiskey sour before we got it dialed in. Now, the whiskey sour is one of those cocktails that everyone is very familiar with and everyone loves to have because, you know, it's a great combination of balancing sweet, sour, and then of course bringing forward that bourbon or that rye that everyone loves. This is also sort of a good litmus test cocktail for bars that you're going to, because if you go to a bar and you order a whiskey sour and they bust out the sour mix, well, man, I'm telling you, right there, you don't want to probably have any more cocktails from that bar. Making this with the sour mix is going to be, it's going to almost bring a medicinal note to it. It's going to be just too sour or too sweet. It's not going to balance it out. You really need to have fresh citrus for that. And I'm going to be using just lemons. So a lot of people sometimes experiment with even doing a combination of grapefruit juice and orange juice in their whiskey sour. Some people do a little lime. I'm going strictly, you know, back to the classic version of the whiskey sour. So we're going to be using just, we're using a rye tonight. So rye, a simple syrup, which is a 1-to-1 ratio. I am using a little bit more of a richer simple syrup. So it's a turbinado sugar. So it's a sugar in the raw, has more of a molasses characteristic to it. But it's a 1-to-1, meaning 1 part sugar to 1 part water to make the simple syrup. And that's it. Other people like to introduce egg whites into it. So they'll bring egg white. You really only need about a 1/4 ounce of egg white to be able to make this whiskey sour and get a nice foam and a froth. And, you know, if you go back to some of my earlier episodes, we talked about dry shaking. So actually shaking that egg white with all the ingredients in the cocktail first before you add your ice and finalize and cool down that shake and get that final dilution before you strain and drink it. But tonight's whiskey sour, I promise, the garnish is the key. So without further ado, let's get started. So it's going to call for 1.5 ounces of whiskey, 3/4 ounce of lemon juice, and 3/4 ounce of simple syrup. So I'm going to go ahead and start, as always, with my citrus. So I'm going to bring in my lemons, and I'm going to be making a triple right now because I got 3 people that want a cocktail. So give me a second while I juice some lemons. But like I always say, fresh juice is the best juice. So we got, once again, 3/4 ounce of lemon juice is what you're doing. I unfortunately have to do, if you do some math, 1.5 ounces plus 3/4 is 2.25, 2.5, something like that.
Ounces.
Yeah.
10 ounces, yeah.
Get this going. And when you are making cocktails, a triple is about the max you can go if you're using just your normal standard shaker or Boston shaker that I'm currently using right now. We're almost there. I think I grabbed just enough lemons. So lemons should yield 1.5 ounces of juice per lemon. These lemons aren't yielding as much juice as I wanted them to. All right, now that we got 3/4 ounces of lemon juice, we're gonna go ahead and add our simple syrup. So it's gonna be, once again, for those of you following along, 3/4 ounce of simple syrup. So now we're 3/4 ounce, 3/4 ounce. And then the final ratio for this cocktail, for the whiskey sour, is going to be our whiskey. So I am using Rittenhouse Rye, bottled and bond, 100 proof. And it calls for 1.5 ounces. So 1.5 ounces is what you're going to use to make this cocktail. So 1.5 ounces of whiskey, 3/4 ounce of lemon juice, and 3/4 ounces of simple syrup. Now the whiskeys that I used earlier this week to make this cocktail is, I used an Old Grandad 114. I used Old Grandad, just regular 80 proof. And I used actually Whistle Pig as part of the other one. I wanted to see what that Whistle Pig characteristic would bring out in the cocktail. And everyone took a vote on it. I'll tell you this, none of them make a bad whiskey sour. They all make a decent whiskey sour. If you use Old Grandad, there's sort of a cinnamon note to it. And because it's a higher proof, it tends to be a little bit more spirit forward in that cocktail. And so you're gonna get a little bit more of that whiskey flavor driving through. That cinnamon actually kind of turns into more of an oaky note to me when I make a whiskey sour with it. And so I tend to back off of some of the higher proofs out there because they tend to really overpower and dominate the balance of this cocktail. When you go to some of the lower proofs, like an 80 proof Old Grandad or just an 80 proof bourbon or rye in general, what's gonna happen is that alcohol tends to get masked a little bit more in that cocktail as you build it. And so you're not gonna get really even a subtle whiskey or bourbon note coming through at all. It tends to just really get buried in there. So I find that when you use 100 proof, it's kind of just right. It's right in the middle. You know, it's just enough proof so that when you shake it and you get some dilution, you usually get about 25% dilution just from the ice. So imagine the dilution you're getting when you're adding lemon and simple. So it just brings it down to a nice proof, but it still kind of pushes through. Bourbons tend to be a little bit more sweeter as you mix them. So if you're using a simple syrup that's not a rich simple syrup, so it's a regular table sugar, that would be probably a better choice. But you know, if you're using those higher proofs, a richer simple syrup is going to help balance it out and bring out some of those nice rye notes that are in there. A little kind of tames it. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and add my ice. And because I'm doing a triple, I'm gonna need to add a little bit of ice to my other shaker just to get enough of it in there. And then go ahead and shake this up. And then I'm gonna fine mesh strain this and get all those ice chips out at the end. You guys ready?
Heck yeah. Mouth's watering over here.
Give it a little bit extra shake doing this triple. Make sure I get it nice and diluted and chilled. All right.
It's all about the arm action.
It's all about that arm action.
It's that shake weight.
All right, here we go. Fine mesh strainer, catch all those ice chips. Now, one little trick about cocktails is the garnish. Now, a garnish can play two roles. A garnish can be simply just for decor, so that it really just elevates the look of that cocktail. But a garnish can also add another element to the cocktail, and that's aroma. So if you put a garnish that has a strong aroma, then what's gonna happen is it's gonna bring a whole new dimension to the cocktail. So my secret garnish tonight that I'm gonna be using is rosemary. So most people have probably not used rosemary in a whiskey sour before, but I just got some fresh rosemary. I'm just gonna lay that on top as my garnish. And now what's gonna happen is, not only does it elevate the look of that cocktail, but it's really going to bring a nice earthy aroma. I mean, if you love the smell of rosemary, just imagine that nice aroma of rosemary followed by that delicious balance and taste of that sweet and that sour in that whiskey sour that you're having. I'll go ahead and give these to you.
Right on.
You guys reach in and do a little cheers. Can you do it?
Salute.
Cheers.
Salute. Tim, that's amazing. Well
There's
played.
a creaminess to it. That, oh man, that aroma when you're taking that rosemary, it just sort of just brings everything together so nicely. All right, I'm gonna go grab the phone and answer any questions. All right. So actually, here we go. What do you think?
Speechless. Speechless. It's amazing.
Kalani?
It's fantastic. Again, kind of capping what Tim talked about. I got to sample the other ones, and throwing this rosemary on top does set it off.
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's fantastic.
It's magic.
All right. Give me a second to go through some of the past thing. Let's see. Yeah, whiskey sour is so good. Mark record, and you guys.
I may end up drinking yours there, pal.
P. What's up, man? Bourbon Runner, what's going on, man? In a cocktail bar, having a cocktail, it's awesome. Would it be wrong to use Willet Rye? I mean, no, it's not wrong to use any whiskey or rye that you want to use. Willet Rye would probably actually be really good. It's just a little costly. Another reason that I picked the Rittenhouse Rye is because it's only like $25 a bottle or less. So when you're mixing things, you know, it's nice to have something that doesn't cost a ton of money to be able to do it. How did I decide on the Rosemary, and how many other things have I tried? So I've tried doing things with aromatic bitters. I've tried doing things, you know, just regular garnish with,
Wicked.
I don't know. What else have I used? Just putting a little lemon, you know, wheel in there and things like that. That don't really add to anything. I was just sitting here thinking about what sort of herb or something could I introduce to it that could give it a little bit more dimension. And I just happen to have a rosemary bush in the backyard, so that's what I did. Andy Graham, ginger beer makes a good twist on this. Ah, that would be good. That would add another kind of dimension to that. These guys. Anything else? Any other questions out there? That rosemary. You could make a rosemary simple syrup. It definitely would bring more of a rosemary taste to it. And I'm not really trying to get a rosemary taste as much as I'm just trying to get that aroma of the rosemary. Not so much the taste of it. You don't really taste it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just more of it kind of awakens that sense of smell.
Right as you go to take that sip, you just get a little bit of that hint of rosemary.
Yeah. Just bring these. Look at this, almost gone. 1.5 ounces of whiskey, just like that. Mm-hmm. But Chef Will V, man, try a rosemary simple. That actually might be a fantastic little twist on this. That's the kind of the cool thing about it is when I do experiment with cocktails, I sort of keep my base. So, you know, my 1.5 ounce whiskey, my 3/4 ounce lemon, and my 3/4 ounce simple syrup, that's my base. So I always know that I'm gonna be doing that as my base. And then from there, you know, you can start to experiment and go off the path, right? So you can go up on a higher proof whiskey, or you can add 1 3/4 ounces of whiskey instead of 1.5 ounces of whiskey. You can do that. They're stealing my drink right now. But if you have that base that you always go back to, that's really what is always going to keep you true. So if you go back, you know, and get too crazy and things like that, you can just go back to your base and kind of reset and then start over. But if you don't have that foundation, you're not there. Road to Wellville, did I miss you on here? Happy birthday, by the way. Go Mets. So, yeah, go Mets.
Go Mets.
Go Mets.
Go Mets.
That's the little league team that they coach. They just came straight from baseball practice. It's awesome. All right, guys. Any other questions before I end this live stream? Hopefully you guys learned something tonight about the whiskey sour. It's a great cocktail. It's a great cocktail to kill those bourbons that you don't like. But if you do, you know, even have a bourbon that you love, it's another way to make something out of it and enjoy it in a little bit different way. Let's see which way. Got my post the other day of that Bon Lillard and that Old Rippy. I'll tell you, wasn't overly impressed with them. They're good. They're good. Very sweet bourbons. But $50 for a 375 milliliter, I don't know about that. Good old Campari and their marketing. Right on, guys. So Track the Trace, yes. If you missed it, I will be posting this recording to YouTube, so I'll have it. You won't be able to see all the fun comments and everything, but you'll be able to get the gist of the cocktail. But in summary, you know, we did 1.5 ounces of Rittenhouse Rye, 3/4 ounces of lemon juice, 3/4 ounces of simple syrup, and then we garnished it with rosemary, and that's really what made it. All right, guys, I appreciate you joining. Give my neighbors a chance to say goodbye. Goodbye, Kalani.
Bye, Kalani.
Robbie.
See you, Tim. Thanks again, buddy.
Right on, guys. I'll see you as always. If you have any requests or any cocktails that you want to see, hit me up. See ya.